It started out as nothing more than a dumb joke, the kind of thing you throw out in a group chat and never expect anyone to actually follow through on. "Bet you won't crash a wedding this weekend," my friend Eric typed. "Bet I will," I replied, half drunk on a Friday night and feeling just cocky enough to believe it. I didn't even have a target until the next day, when my friend Sophie, who works part-time as a wedding photographer, casually mentioned she had a gig at a vineyard 30 minutes outside the city. The couple? No one I knew. Open bar? Most likely. Guest list? Easily over 100 people. Perfect. "I'm not saying I support this," Sophie said as she curled her hair in the mirror. "But if you do show up around 6, no one will question you. Everyone will be half lit by then, and the couple's too blissed out to care." So I ironed a shirt I hadn't worn since my cousin's bat mitzvah, threw on a blazer that barely fit anymore, and showed up. No invitation, no plan, just vibes. And it worked. The venue was stunning. Rolling hills, white tents lit with fairy lights, a string quartet playing a moody rendition of Taylor Swift. I walked in through the back path Sophie had tipped me off about and blended in like I'd been part of the family for years. All I had to do was nod confidently and keep moving. Nobody stopped me. Nobody questioned me. I found a glass of champagne, grabbed a crab cake, and leaned against a column like I had a reason to be there. That's when I saw him. The groom. Dark brown hair, tousled like he'd just walked through a wind tunnel. Crisp navy suit, fitted so well I felt underdressed even in my barely wrinkled shirt. He was tall, clean-shaven, and had the kind of calm, quiet charisma that pulled your eyes without asking for it. He was standing alone near the dance floor, sipping something from a short glass and scanning the crowd like he was trying to memorize every face. And then he saw me. I didn't mean to make eye contact, but once I did, I couldn't look away. He tilted his head just slightly, squinted like he was trying to place me. I turned quickly and walked toward the opposite end of the tent, my heart thudding like I'd just been caught stealing. I ended up near a fire pit outside, where a few older relatives were smoking cigars and trading dad jokes. I lingered on the edge, staring out at the vineyard, wondering if I'd pushed the joke too far. I was about to text Sophie and ask her if it was time to make a graceful exit, when I felt someone step up beside me. "You here with the bride or the groom?" That voice, calm, deep, a little amused. I turned, and, yep, there he was, the groom. Groom, I think?" I said, mentally kicking myself. "Smooth." He smiled like he didn't believe me for a second. "Funny. I know just about everyone on my side. And I don't think we've met." I scrambled. "Friend of Jason?" He raised an eyebrow. "Jason moved to Barcelona 2 years ago. Didn't make the trip." "Shit. I'm gonna level with you," I sighed. "I'm crashing, but I swear I didn't come to steal anything or ruin the day. It was just a stupid dare." "I'll go." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Relax," he said, swirling his drink. "Honestly, you're the most interesting part of this whole night." I blinked. "Aren't you supposed to be, deliriously in love right now?" He shrugged. "Supposed to be." There was a pause. Then he looked right at me. "You got a name, mystery guest?" "Eli." He stuck out his hand. "Daniel." We shook. His grip was firm, warm, and I don't know if I imagined it, but his hand lingered just a second, longer than necessary. We stood in silence for a few beats. The wind picked up slightly, carrying the smell of roses and expensive cologne. "You ever been to a wedding before?" he asked. "Only one where I belonged." "Then you've probably had better champagne," I snorted. "What gave it away?" "I saw you wince after the first sip." I laughed. "Okay, fair. This is easily the most bougie crime I've ever committed." He glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. "You want to stay?" I frowned. "I thought I was about to be escorted off the property." Daniel's mouth twitched into a half smile. "I'm not going to turn you in. I might need someone sane to talk to tonight." I wasn't sure what he meant by that. And I didn't get a chance to ask, because just then, someone called out for him from across the lawn. Probably a cousin or a groomsman. He turned to go. But before he did, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a slim card. He pressed it into my hand, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Text me later. Please." And he walked away. I looked down. It was a business card. Minimalist. Name. Number. No job title. No company. Just Daniel. And a cell number. What the hell had I just stumbled into? I didn't text him that night. Not because I didn't want to, but because I had absolutely no idea what I was supposed to say. "Hey, thanks for not having me arrested at your wedding. Wanna hang?" I left the vineyard just after dark, slipping out the way I came in, clutching Daniel's card like it was evidence from a crime scene. On the ride home, I kept glancing at it on the passenger seat, like it might vanish if I looked away too long. The whole thing felt unreal, like I'd stumbled into some twisted rom-com that forgot to give me the script. I couldn't shake the way he looked at me, calm, composed, almost resigned, like he was watching a play unfold that he didn't audition for. And that line he dropped, "supposed to be," stuck with me. It didn't sound like a guy madly in love and ready to start forever. I didn't sleep much that night. I woke up late Sunday morning, the card still sitting on my nightstand. I stared at it for a long time before grabbing my phone and typing out a message. I didn't hit send, just stared at it. "Hey, not sure if this is weird or not, but thanks for not kicking me out last night. Hope you survived the rest of the chaos." I deleted it. Wrote a new one. "So, how's the honeymoon?" "Nope. Worse." Eventually I settled on, "Hey, it's Eli, the wedding crasher. Just wanted to say thanks for being cool about it. Hope I didn't ruin your night." I hit send. And waited. 5 minutes. Nothing. 10. 20. I tossed my phone onto the bed and went to make coffee. When I came back, it was buzzing. "Daniel, you didn't ruin it. If anything, you were the one part of the night that felt real." I stared at the screen. What did that even mean? Me. That sounds intense. Daniel. It was. Then nothing for a few minutes. I watched the 3 little dots appear, disappear, appear again. Then finally, "Daniel, do you want to grab a drink?" Me. "Right now?" Daniel. "Tonight. There's a bar in Echo Park, the first like. Quiet. Discreet." I blinked. He was married. Just married. Right? Me. Not to state the obvious, but isn't this kind of complicated? Daniel, yeah, it is. But it's also real. And I think I need that right now. I don't know what possessed me, but I said yes. The bar was small, tucked behind a flower shop and barely marked. I got there first, ordered a whiskey I couldn't afford, and waited, telling myself over and over that this was insane and I should leave. Then Daniel walked in. No wedding ring. No suit. Just a black t-shirt, jeans, and the same steady, unreadable expression. He sat down across from me and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 24 hours straight. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "Honestly, neither did I." He gave a half smile and nodded toward my glass. "You always drink whiskey?" "When I'm nervous." He laughed softly. "Me too." We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of everything we weren't saying hovering in the air between us. Finally, I asked, "So, you want to tell me why the hell the groom at a $100,000 wedding is sitting here with a guy he met at his own reception?" Daniel looked down at his drink, then back at me. "I didn't want to get married." There it was. He said it so simply, like he was just saying the sky was blue or the traffic sucks. I tried to call it off 2 months ago. My parents, her parents, they freaked. We'd already booked everything. Vendors, guests, deposits. Everyone kept saying how perfect we were together, how this was meant to be. I didn't interrupt. I just watched him unravel. I told myself I could fake it, that it was just nerves, cold feet or whatever. But walking down that aisle, I've never felt more like a stranger in my own life. He looked at me then, really looked. And then I saw you, standing by the bar like you didn't belong, but also like you wanted to be there. And for some reason, I don't know, I wanted to talk to you. I took a sip of my drink to hide the fact that my hands were starting to sweat. You don't even know me. I know that I wanted to. We sat in silence again. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know what I wanted it to be. All I knew was that something about this guy, this supposed groom, made me feel more awake than I had in months. You know this is crazy, right? I finally said. He nodded. Yeah, but maybe crazy's better than lying. I didn't have an answer to that. But I didn't leave, either. We stayed at that bar for nearly 3 hours. The conversation wandered. Slowly, then all at once. It started heavy, of course. Daniel unpacking his wedding like it was something that happened to him, not something he chose. But eventually we drifted into easier territory. Music. Old jobs. Favorite cities. Books he pretended to read in college. He had a dry sense of humor, the kind that takes a second to register and hits harder because of it. I laughed more than I expected to. Somewhere between our second and third round, he glanced down at his drink and said, I don't think I've ever had a night like this. Like what? He looked at me. Where I didn't have to perform. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. When we finally stood to leave, the air outside was sharp and a little damp. The streets were mostly empty. I expected him to say goodnight, maybe offer an awkward hug, maybe disappear forever. Instead, he said, You want to come up for a bit? I live just around the corner. I hesitated. He noticed. No pressure, he added quickly. I don't really want to be alone tonight, and I'd rather not fake smile through another dinner with my new in-laws. I gave him a long look. You haven't told her yet, have you? He didn't answer at first. Then, finally, No. You going to? His jaw tightened. Yeah, I just needed this first. Needed to feel like myself before I blew it all up. I should have walked away. I should have told him to sort his life out before dragging someone else into the fallout. But instead, I said, All right, just for a bit. His apartment was clean, minimal, the kind of place you could tell was mostly decorated by someone else. A vase of hydrangeas sat on the kitchen island. A set of stemless wine glasses lined up like museum pieces. A handwritten note on the fridge that just said, You're amazing. I love you. Let's survive this day. It was signed with a little heart and a lowercase j. I caught myself staring at it too long. Daniel followed my gaze. She came over this morning. Drop that off before the ceremony. I nodded slowly. So this is real. He didn't reply. We stood in silence for a long moment. Not tense, just heavy. Then he stepped forward, real close. I don't expect anything from you, he said. Not tonight, not ever, He stopped, shook his head. You don't have to explain, I said, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. His eyes met mine. There was something there, some mix of guilt and desire and relief. Can I kiss you? He asked. That wrecked me a little. The question. The way he asked, like he'd never said those words before. I didn't answer. I just closed the space between us. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't reckless. It was slow. Careful. Like he was afraid I might vanish if he moved too fast. His hands barely touched me. One at my jaw, the other at my hip. Mine rested against his chest, feeling his heart thump through the fabric. When we pulled apart, neither of us spoke. We didn't have to. He led me to the couch. We didn't do much. Just sat there side by side, like two people quietly acknowledging that something irreversible had just begun. At some point, I fell asleep, my head against his shoulder, the soft hum of the city outside the only soundtrack. I woke up early, sunlight already creeping across the hardwood floor. Daniel was still asleep, slouched awkwardly against the armrest, his mouth slightly open. I stared at him for a long second, trying to figure out how I felt. Part of me wanted to stay. Another part knew I probably shouldn't have come in the first place. I stood up carefully, not wanting to wake him. Wrote a quick note on a piece of mail from the coffee table. Text me if you ever figure out what you want. E. And then I left. No big goodbye. No dramatic scene. Just slipped back into the morning like a secret. 3 days passed. Nothing. No texts. No missed calls. No angry follow-ups. Just silence. I tried to distract myself. Work, gym, laundry, pretending my fridge wasn't full of expired yogurt and sad spinach, but it didn't work. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was him. And every time, it wasn't. By Thursday, I'd convinced myself it was a one-night detour, a glitch in his carefully programmed life. Maybe he woke up that morning, saw my note, and felt sick with regret. Maybe he burned the card he gave me. Maybe he'd already apologized to his wife and deleted me from his head. But then Friday night, 9:17 p.m., I got the message. Daniel, I told her. That was it. No context, no details. My heart shot into my throat. I stared at the screen, not even sure how to respond. Me. Are you okay? It took him 5 minutes to reply. Daniel, I don't know yet. I didn't want to ask what happened. I didn't want to insert myself into a breakup, or worse, a marriage repair job. But I also didn't want to pretend like I hadn't been part of whatever just blew up. Me, do you want to talk? No reply, not that night. But the next morning, I got another message. Daniel, can I see you? We met at a small coffee shop near the park. Neutral ground. Bright daylight. Public enough to feel safe, quiet enough to talk. Daniel looked wrecked. He wore the same navy jacket from the wedding, but now it was wrinkled, thrown over a t-shirt like he didn't care anymore. His hair was a mess. Eyes bloodshot, like he hadn't slept. Hey, he said, sitting down across from me. Thanks for coming. You look like hell, I said before I could stop myself. He gave a sad smile. Feels accurate. I wrapped my hands around my coffee. You really told her? He nodded slowly. Everything. Even you. That knocked the air out of me. Jesus! I couldn't live with myself if I lied. Not after that night. I didn't know what to say. So I asked, the only thing that felt safe. What did she say? He stared down at his cup for a long time. She cried. Then she said she already knew. My eyes widened. Wait, what? She said she always knew something wasn't right, that I was trying too hard to play the part. He exhaled. She told me I didn't have to pretend anymore. I sat back, stunned. And now? She's staying with her sister. We're figuring out the legal stuff. He paused. It's over. I swallowed hard. I didn't think you'd actually do it. Neither did I, he admitted. But you! He stopped, shook his head like he was trying to wrestle his thoughts into shape. You reminded me there's a version of me that I haven't let exist for a long time. I didn't reply. Couldn't. I just sat there, heart hammering in my chest, trying not to look too much like a deer in headlights. Then, softly, he said, I don't know what this is, what we are, but if you're still willing, I'd like to see where it goes. That was the moment I realized. I'd been waiting to hear him say that since the night of the wedding. Since he looked at me like I was the first honest thing in the room, I didn't give him a yes. Not right away. But I didn't give him a no either. I reached across the table, rested my hand over his, and that was enough for now. It wasn't easy. Starting anything with someone fresh out of a marriage was always going to be messy. Add in the fact that we met under wildly unconventional circumstances, me being a literal wedding crasher. And yeah, it was awkward, complicated, uncertain, but it was also something. Daniel texted every day, short, simple stuff at first. Morning, hope you're good. Thought of you when I walked past that bar. Missed your laugh today. He'd ask if I wanted to grab coffee or go on a walk or meet for dinner somewhere low-key. Nothing flashy, no assumptions, just time. I wasn't used to that kind of care, especially not from someone who looked like him. It was like getting warm hands after you didn't realize you were freezing. A couple weeks in, we were walking through Griffith Park, a little trail he liked, when he suddenly stopped mid-step. "I haven't told my parents yet," he said. I glanced over. About the divorce? About any of it? He said it like a confession, like he was ashamed to say it out loud. "They're conservative. My dad's a pastor. My mom still writes me cards with Bible verses in the margins." He gave a hollow laugh. "They've always wanted me to be this golden son, and for a long time I tried. And now?" He looked at me, that same unreadable calm in his face. "Now I'm trying to be honest. For once." It didn't sound brave. It sounded painful. And real. I reached over, squeezed his hand, and we kept walking. Things weren't linear after that. Some days felt light, like we were two normal people in a new relationship. Trying new restaurants, watching Netflix on my couch, arguing over whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie. He insists it is, which is objectively wrong. Other days were heavier, like the night he got the first draft of the divorce papers. He came over, sat in silence for 20 minutes, then asked, "What if I'm making a huge mistake?" He wasn't asking me to fix it. He just needed to say it out loud. So I let him. I didn't say, "No, you're not," or "You're brave," or "It'll all work out." I just said, "You're allowed to wonder. Doesn't mean it's wrong." And he nodded. And that night, he didn't want to talk. He just wanted to be held. So I held him. And that was enough. About a month in, he finally invited me to his place again. It looked different now. The vase of hydrangeas was gone, the fridge note too. The apartment felt a little more his. He'd moved things around, bought a new coffee table, added a framed poster of an old jazz album to the wall. "You're nesting," I teased. "I'm rebuilding," he corrected. We made dinner together, pasta and salad, and the most burnt garlic bread I've ever eaten. He played records while we cooked. Not playlists, actual vinyl. The man had a whole setup in the corner of his living room that I'd completely missed the first time. At one point, he reached across the island and touched my chin, just briefly. "I still think about that night," he said quietly. "The wedding?" "Yeah." He smiled, faint. "You look so out of place, but like you didn't care." I laughed. I cared. I was terrified. "You didn't show it." There was a pause. Then he added, "I think I started falling for you before I even knew your name." I didn't say anything right away. My chest tightened in that weird way it does when something feels too good to be true. Like if I breathed too hard, it would all vanish. But it didn't vanish. He leaned over and kissed me. And this time, it wasn't cautious or conflicted. It was steady, certain. And it felt like the beginning of something that wasn't going to burn out overnight. By mid-spring, we were something. Not official, not undefined. Somewhere in that fragile in-between, where feelings are real, but the labels are still catching up. Daniel was careful. Not distant, never that, but deliberate. He didn't rush. He checked in constantly, emotionally, mentally. He never made promises he wasn't ready to keep. But what he did offer, his time, his attention, his vulnerability, felt more honest than any declaration. And I was falling for him. It scared me how fast it happened. Scared me how much I looked forward to his texts. How his laugh played in my head during the day. How I caught myself reaching for my phone whenever something funny or ridiculous happened because he was the first person I wanted to tell. The biggest shift came the night he invited me to a dinner party. Not some secret low-light thing with safe friends. No, this was his actual friends. The people who'd stood beside him at his wedding, people who knew his ex, people who didn't know about me yet. "Are you sure?" I asked when he brought it up. "I want them to know you," he said simply. "I want to stop hiding." So I said yes. The night of the party, I was nervous as hell. More nervous than I'd been crashing his wedding, which was saying something. I wore a button-down that made my collar itch and showed up 20 minutes early like some over-eager intern. Daniel opened the door with a crooked smile. "You look good," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. "You look terrifyingly calm." "I'm not. I just want them to meet the guy who made me blow up my life. Comforting. He grinned. We stepped inside. The apartment was warm and filled with the low hum of conversation and the smell of garlic and roasting vegetables. Wine glasses clinked. Someone had a playlist running quietly. Fleetwood Mac, I think. People turned. Smiles. Hugs. Introductions. Hey, I'm Josh, one of Daniel's oldest friends. I'm Tara. We used to work together in Denver. And then, finally, wait, are you Eli? I froze. Daniel laughed. Word travels fast. Josh raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. We've heard things? I glanced at Daniel. He shrugged, unapologetic. I told them the truth, he said. About the wedding. About you. I should have felt exposed. But I didn't. I felt seen. The night went better than I expected. Someone spilled wine on the couch. Someone tried to do a magic trick with a bottle opener. We laughed. We ate too much. Daniel stood behind me during most of it, one hand on my back, like a silent tether. At one point, as we were cleaning up dessert plates, Tara leaned toward me and said, "You're good for him, you know." I blinked. Sorry? He's lighter around you. Like he can breathe. I didn't know what to say to that. I just smiled, awkward and quiet, and wiped down the counter a little more thoroughly than necessary. When everyone left, Daniel walked me to my car. We stood there in the driveway, the night quiet around us. I know tonight was a lot, he said. It wasn't, I said. It was surprisingly nice. He nodded. I keep thinking, he said slowly, about how none of this would have happened if you hadn't shown up that night. That dumb, chaotic, ridiculous night where I ate 3 crab cakes and pretended to know someone named Jason. Exactly, he smiled. I'm glad you did. I reached out, took his hand. I'm glad you saw me. We weren't rushing. Even as things deepened, inside jokes becoming second nature, weekends blurring together, toothbrushes quietly migrating, we never said the word boyfriends out loud. Not because we weren't, but because neither of us needed the declaration to make it feel real. Still, I could tell Daniel was waiting for something, some unspoken milestone maybe, a moment that gave permission to fully exhale. That moment came one night in June. We were lying in bed, the fan spinning lazily overhead, his chest rising and falling next to me. He was half asleep, his arms slung over my waist like a weight he forgot he was carrying. And then, out of nowhere, he whispered, "You make everything feel possible." I didn't say anything. I just rolled closer, pressed my forehead to his, and let the silence do the talking. That was the night I knew it wasn't just a phase for him, or an escape hatch, or a reaction to a life that had cracked open. It was real. A few days later, I found myself walking past that same vineyard, the one where it all started. My friend Sophie had another shoot out there and invited me to tag along for the drive. I hadn't been back since the night I pretended to belong and somehow ended up changing both our lives. It looked different now, still beautiful, still sprawling, but less intimidating. Less like a backdrop to someone else's perfect love story, and more like the place where mine had quietly begun. Daniel texted while I was standing near the fountain, the same one where he first walked up and called me out. Daniel, guess where I'm standing? He sent a photo, his kitchen. Flour all over the counter, a half-prepped lasagna in the background. Daniel, I'm cooking. For us. Like an adult. Try not to die of shock. I smiled, thumb hovering over the screen, then typed back, me. Guess where I am? I sent him a photo of the fountain, almost from the same angle as that night. It took him a second to respond. Daniel. God. I was terrified that night. Me. You didn't look it. Daniel. I was about to walk away. Thought you'd think I was insane. Me. Well, you kind of were. Daniel. Still am. But at least I'm insane with good taste now. Me. You really were about to leave? Daniel. Yeah. Then you smiled. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Funny how such a small thing, a smile, a glance, a dare from a drunk friend, could detour your entire life. That night, after dinner, I asked him something I hadn't yet. We were sitting on his balcony, watching the skyline buzz in the distance. He had his feet in my lap and a glass of red wine in hand. "Do you regret it?" He didn't need clarification. He didn't even hesitate. "No." "You sure?" He looked at me. "I regret waiting so long to figure it out. But you? Us? No, never." Then he set his wine down, leaned in, and kissed me like it was both an answer and a promise. And in that moment, I knew something I hadn't been sure of until now. I crashed a wedding as a joke, and somehow I ended up finding something that felt like home. 1 year later, I went to another wedding. This time I was invited. It wasn't ours. That would have been a little too poetic. It was Daniel's friend Tara, the one who told me he breathed easier around me. She was marrying a woman named Jordan in a backyard ceremony that somehow managed to be both elegant and completely laid back. Daniel and I showed up together, hand in hand, no sideways glances, no secrets. People smiled when they saw us. There were hugs, toasts, laughter. One of Daniel's friends made a joke about how we all met, and I blushed while Daniel just smirked. He never tried to rewrite the story, never pretended we met any other way than the absurd, mildly criminal, completely chaotic truth of it. And weirdly, I loved that about him. After dinner, as the fairy lights twinkled above us and someone's cousin absolutely butchered an Adele song during karaoke, Daniel tugged me aside. "Come here," he said. I followed him across the yard, past the dance floor, and under the archway Tara and Jordan had gotten married beneath. It was simple, just eucalyptus and twine, but beautiful, soft, honest. He pulled something from his pocket. My heart jumped for a split second, reflexive panic, but it wasn't a ring, it was the original card, the one he gave me the night of his wedding. Crinkled now, slightly faded, but unmistakable. "I found it in a drawer last week," he said. Almost tossed it. I looked at it, then at him. "Why didn't you?" "Because that night changed everything. It was the beginning of the life I didn't know I was allowed to have." He slipped it into my hand. "And I want you to have it now. As a reminder." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Of what?" He smiled. "That sometimes the best things start when you don't belong. And then you do." We kissed under the lights, the sounds of laughter and off-key karaoke floating through the air. And I thought, this is what it feels like. Not a movie, not a fantasy, just two people who stumbled into something real, one bad decision at a time, and somehow it turned into love.